So keep your eyes, this summer we're kind of slow about that. Percona. Percona's one of our sponsors. They give us the pizza, and we can thank Percona. And we always let Percona stand up and give a little spiel. Those of you that are regulars know we usually have a raffle, and we raffle off O'Reilly books, but we've raffled them all off, and O'Reilly's a little slow getting us more books. And I know some of you suffered through last month's iPad. The person who got the iPad isn't here tonight, but I'm sure he enjoyed that talk. The rest of us suffered a little bit. It seemed more marketing. I did quiz him. I want you all to know I gave him a hard quiz and told him no marketing, and he had to relate it to MySQL. I don't know how SQL Server and MySQL sounded the same, but it unfortunately did, and I'm sorry I suffered along with the rest of y'all. But tonight we have such a rock star, I think I've made up for it. So although we don't have the iPad, we have a rock star in the room. But Percona, will you? Then anybody else?
Yeah, we're also hiring for a community PA MySQL, and we're also hiring
And tools developer in what language?
Hi, I'm Xavier from Storyfy, and we are hiring JavaScript developers. We don't use MySQL, we use MongoDB. We're going to play with JavaScript and have fun with that. A lot of fun, Node.js, stuff like that.
Anybody else?
No, I
Okay, I guess I'll get down to why we're all here. I feel really fortunate to have Giuseppe, who helped me in IRC while he was far away. I don't know what he was doing up at that time of night because I was in the daytime here. But he helped me with Sandbox because I was using it in a way that the docs weren't written for. And so at the conference, I asked if he would speak here, and now we have him, and I'm so excited. And he really is a rock star in the MySQL world if you're not aware of him. And you should check out his blog.
Thank you.
Further ado, I'm done.
Unfortunately, I forgot my guitar. Hi. Can you hear me, everybody? Okay. Who knows about MySQL Sandbox already? Okay, you can leave the room. Otherwise, you will spoil my jokes. Few words about me. If you don't know, I'm the MySQL community team lead. I work with the MySQL team that was with MySQL AB, then Sun, and then Oracle. I do a lot of things with open source, MySQL, Perl. And I travel a lot. One particular information for you. I live in Italy, which is 9 time zones to the right. Yeah, I think so. So if I fall asleep, just tap on my shoulder a little bit, and I should continue like that. If I don't wake up, shot some coffee in my arm, and that should be all. So today we are going to talk about the MySQL Sandbox, toolkit for laziness. Who knows what laziness is? So according to the official definition, laziness is when you are able to do something, but you don't feel like doing it. So disinclination means that you don't feel like. Let's see. I am an experienced DBA, so I have the ability of installing multiple MySQL servers in one host. I can do that, really. And I can also make it in such a way that they don't conflict with each other. I can do that manually, just reading the manual and doing these installations. I actually did a lot when I was a consultant. Do I really want to do that? And do I really want to do that several times a day? Because if you are a consultant or work in QA, you really have to do something like that. Well, I don't feel like doing that. More. I'm a command line wizard. I don't use graphical interface a lot. I can install these servers, and after that I can use them from the command line using very long options. I don't really want to do that. And what else? Replication. Who knows how to install replication here? Do you like it? You know, I can install replication almost without errors. If I do it manually, I can do the replication, and after that I can connect the slave to the slave and the master without making mistakes sometimes. Do I want to do that a lot of times? Not really. I can even set up circular replication. I make mistakes every time. And I curse a lot. So I really don't feel inclined to do so. You know, now plugins are very popular. I can install plugins. I can read the manual. I can convert the manual from English into human English. Then I do some copy and paste and install plugins. Once that I've done that, I don't really feel like doing that many times. So I have the ability. I don't feel inclined to do repetitive work. Then I'm lazy. I admit it. I'm a lazy developer. So what is a lazy developer? Definition. A lazy developer is someone who writes 12,000 lines of code to spare himself the burden of typing 15 lines on the terminal. Of course, in the process, you can save the trouble to 1 million people, but okay, maybe, I think, hopefully. So that's me. I'm a lazy developer, and I'm here today because I hope that you will be lazy too. So after this presentation, I hope you will become as lazy as I am. Now we know what is laziness. Let's talk about Sandbox. I have a presentation that it's 1 hour long. I will spare you then. I made a new one today, so I will start with a lightning talk on Sandbox to explain what is it, and after that I will show you some examples. And if you really feel, I can take the long presentation and show it to you, but I think you will like this shorter version. So, Sandbox, how did it all begin? I was a consultant. I had a lot of customers. Every customer had a different MySQL version. So when I wanted to help them, I had to install the version that they were using with the setup that they were using, try to find the problem and fix it. And since the problem came all at once, I had to keep in my servers MySQL installations of 10 different versions. And I used to do that manually. Then I decided to script it. I speak Perl much better than English. And I used it. So let's see. DBA quiz. How many keystrokes you need to install a MySQL server? A side MySQL server, so not the main one. You know, the main one, you just say apt-get MySQL server, and you are done, or yum MySQL server. So if you want to do manually, how many keystrokes it takes? Yes. 12 lines. Okay, it's 10 keystrokes using MySQL Sandbox, including the return. Now, if you want to install 3 servers in replication, that's a little bit more than 15 lines, I bet you. No, you have to read several parts of the manual, do a lot of cut and paste from different places to different places, and I guess you will end up with something like a few hundred if you don't make mistakes. However, with MySQL Sandbox is 11, including the final return. And how long does it take to install a MySQL server? Now, when I was a consultant and really doing a lot of manual installation, I could install a MySQL server, a side MySQL server with different port, different socket, everything non-conflicting in about 10 minutes. That was my 100th server, but the first ones was not that short. So with Sandbox, it takes less than 5 seconds. Second? Yes, including that. How long does it take to install 3 servers in replication? That's a big task. In Sandbox, it takes less than 10 seconds. Well, it depends on the version. For MySQL 5.0, it's less than 10 seconds. For MySQL 5.1, it's less than 20. So what is it in global? MySQL Sandbox is one free software project. It's not official MySQL program. Has been my pet project long before I joined MySQL. You can get it for free. You can contribute to it. It works in every operating system as long as that operating system looks like Unix. If you can read here, I don't do Windows. I don't really care about Windows. It's not my fault. And it can do a lot of things. It can install single or multiple databases. It can do some testing with scripts, and it can trigger your imagination as well. Now, let's have a brief overview of the sandbox. So what is it? If you want to install a second server on your machine, you have 3 problems. The 3 problems are the data directory, the port, and the socket. If you want to have 2 servers, you have to make sure that they are not using the same port, the same socket, or the same data directory. What happens if you use the same data directory? Theoretically, you can do it, but you can corrupt your data, or if you are lucky, it doesn't start. If you use the same port or the same socket, it doesn't start at all. So you have a problem that you have to solve using the instruction that you find in the manual. The hard way is reading the instruction in the manual and going through the steps. Unpack the tarball, unpack in a separate directory, create the database tables, create a configuration file, and then launch the MySQL server using that configuration file. Finally, you have to use that server using the parameter that you put in the configuration file. If you manage to get it right once, it's okay. If you do that 10 times, you will make mistakes. Is there a question there? So the question is if I put my logs in the data directory. And in this case, I do, but it's very easy to separate them. Anyway, the problem is that if you use the same data directory for 2 servers, you mix them up. And probably you have mistakes. So how does the sandbox fix the problem? The sandbox will take the version of your MySQL server and use that version as the basis to differentiate the servers. So use the version to create a data directory, the version to create a port, and the version to create a socket. For instance, if the version is 5.1.37, this will be part of the data directory. This will be the port number, and will be part of the socket number. So you don't have a conflict. You change the version, and you have a different set of things. Not only that, once you have used this complicated system, you don't want to remember too many things. You just want to start, stop, and use the server without remembering a long series of command line options for that. So the sandbox, when you install it, will create for you some utilities inside the sandbox itself. So you will find a script that is dedicated to that sandbox that will start, stop, give the status, restart the server. And in case you have to do some cleanup, you can use the command clear and send kill. And let's be clear about that. Sandbox is one system that is used for testing. So it's has not been designed to be a production database. It's something that you use for your own testing, for QA, for consulting, for whatever use you may have, except deploying for production. This is why it's easy to create that and easy to dispose of it. This is why we have a send kill that is a very dangerous command that will try to exit nicely, and if it doesn't exit nicely, it will kill it brutally. So it's something that you should never do to a production database, but to a test database, you can do it, especially if you're testing alpha. Now, if you know the Lord of the Rings, you have one sandbox to rule them all. When you have a replication in sandbox, everything goes inside one box that contains everything. So inside the one big box, you will find the master and the slaves, and you can say start all or stop all. So the same things that you have seen before, just with all, so you don't have to type too many times. The start all will know that will start first the master and then the slaves. The stop all will stop first the slaves and then the master. And then you have a use all command that allows you to send one SQL query to all the servers and get the result. And since you don't want to type too much, instead of saying master/use, you just say m. Instead of saying node1/use, you say s1, first slave, second slave, and so on. If you have several servers that are not in replication, then you can use n1, n2, n3. Roger so far? Does it sound easy? Okay. So what do? You need to install MySQL Sandbox first. The good news is that you don't need to suffer too much. If you have root, you can do cpan and install MySQL Sandbox. That's it. Cpan, for people who don't know that, is the Perl repository of modules. The cpan program will download the MySQL Sandbox, test it, and install it. Once you have a MySQL Sandbox, you can do things like this. You say make sandbox and the name of the tarball. That will install a sandbox in your machine. If you want to use a replication, you do make replication sandbox and a tarball. That's all it takes. So far, it sounds lazy enough, doesn't it? Okay, since I'm even more lazy than that, I got organized. So the sandboxes come in this default architecture. If you don't do anything, this is what you get when you install a sandbox. In your home, you will have a directory called sandboxes, but you can change it if you want. It's enough if you change this sandbox home environment variable, and the sandboxes will be created inside this directory. So you don't lose track of them. You can find all your sandboxes inside here. And then inside this directory, you can say start all, stop all, so you can clean up at once without problems. And then you have another directory that is called sandbox binary. It's not mandatory, but if you have it, it will make your life much easier. How does it work? Inside this directory that by default is home opt mysql, you will expand your tarballs, the ones that you use more often. So here I have MySQL 5091, 5145, and so on. And if you have that, you will be able to use MySQL Sandbox much easier. I'm going to show you a recipe soon. inside your sandboxes directory, you will have sandboxes created like this. A single sandbox is MSB and the version. A replication sandbox will be R sandbox and the version. And inside that, you will have master, node 1, node 2, node 3, node 4, and so on. So this is your basic organization. Let's see some examples. So if you want to create a single sandbox, very easy. Make sandbox and the full path to the MySQL tarball. This shouldn't be a problem. If you want to use this sandbox, you just go to that directory that has been created and say use. Use is just a convenient script that will use the configuration file that was created for that particular sandbox, and you are inside the system without writing long command line options. If you want to use a specific option file, for instance, you are a consultant, you have a customer who has an option file in their server, and you want to create a sandbox that are using all the options from that file without conflicting with the options that you are using for the sandbox, you just tell the sandbox to do the work. You say my file equals, and then you give the full path to the configuration file. The sandbox will scan the configuration file, remove all the options that are used by the sandbox. For instance, we will remove socket, port, and data directory, and base directory, all the things that are needed to create a sandbox, and leave everything else as it finds. So you don't have to type anything. You will find everything in the sandbox already made. Everything clear so far? If you are a busy consultant and you have many customers, or you are a busy QA developer and need to test several times the same version, or to create many things with many versions, you can tell the sandbox to do things much quicker. What do you need to do? You need to expand the tarball in some place. So you go to one place that is called sandbox binary. By default is in your home opt MySQL, but you can change it to any place that you like. Then expand the tarball and rename the tarball with a simple version. And after you have done that, you do make sandbox 5134. This is useful in also cases where the tarball doesn't respect this pattern. So if the tarball doesn't start with MySQL 5134, MySQL dash version number, you can use this. For instance, I use this for cluster. Cluster doesn't have the same pattern, and it has the cluster version, not the MySQL version. So I just expand it and put the MySQL version there, and then I use it in this way. Make sandbox and version number, and the sandbox will do everything for you. No, you can You can patch it to do something different, but at the moment it only recognizes a directory that is pure version without letters. The short way, if you want to do that several times, the first time that you use the sandbox with a tarball, instead of going through the motions that I show you in the previous slide, you just say export binaries, and it will do everything that we have seen before. You see how lazy I am. So instead of doing this, that is a lot of work, I wrote 100 lines to instruct the sandbox to do this. Now, how do you use it? If you want to start a sandbox, just go to the sandbox directory and do start. Easy. If you want to stop it, instead of start, you say stop. When you are testing, you may find it convenient to test with several options that you need only once. So instead of modifying the option file, you can just say start with one option that you need. Actually, you can use many options. Or restart with one or many options. And the sandbox will restart the server using this option in the server line. This is very much useful when you are testing. Sometimes you need to use the same version several times. So you want many sandboxes that have the same version. You can tell the sandbox to create a group of sandboxes with the same version, or if you need another one only, you can say create another sandbox with this different port and with this directory name. Now, this could be a problem because the port 6800 might be already used by another sandbox, and Mickey Mouse may exist. So you can be lazier than this and tell the sandbox, just make sure that that port is not used yet. So what does it do? If 5134 is not used, this will be your port, and the directory will be 5134. If it's already used, then it will use 5135, and the directory will be 5134A. If 5135 is not available, then it will try 5136 and so on. So it will make sure that one port is used. If you have 32,000 sandboxes in your computer, it will fail. But then I think you will have already some problems more. One question that many people ask me when I showed this option, why does the sandbox not do this by default? Because it's slow. Because the sandbox will check all the installed sandboxes, even the ones that are not started yet. And it will check the port in each sandbox. If the port is already used, so it will check every configuration file of every sandbox in your computer under the sandbox home. If that sandbox is already using one port, it will flag it as used. So this is why it's a little bit slow. It will take a few seconds more than a normal sandbox. And by default, so I don't use it. But since you can use a configuration file for the sandbox itself, you can enable it if you want. Replication sandbox, it's almost as easy as creating a single sandbox. You say just make replication sandbox and a path to the tarboard. Who has ever used a circular replication? Nobody? Okay, good. Circular replication is something that only crazy people and writers of articles do. I don't know to which category I belong because I did that several times. And I wrote an article, but I didn't have to, so maybe I'm crazy. Anyway, circular replication is something that you can do, and you will make mistakes whenever you try, because it's very tricky to get it right. The sandbox will do that for you without mistakes. So you just say how many nodes you want in your replication, and the sandbox will do everything for you. So you can have the feeling of a circular replication system and see how it works and see why you shouldn't use it. If you want to change the port to an existing sandbox, you can do that. There is one tool that is called the sandbox tool, and you call this tool saying operation equals port. The source sandbox to use, and you put the path to the sandbox, and the new port that you want to do. The sandbox will do that automatically for you. We'll stop the sandbox, change the port, and restart the sandbox. I put this twice. Okay, this was a mistake. The InnoDB plugin. You know, plugins now are really popular. Everybody's making plugins. So if you want to try InnoDB plugin, you have to go to the manual, see how to install it, and do some cut and paste in the right way. Or you can ask the sandbox, install me this plugin. The plugin name is InnoDB, and this is the path to the plugin. The sandbox tool can install 3 plugins at the moment. One is the InnoDB plugin. One is the semi-synchronous replication plugin. And one is the Gearman plugin. The manual explains how you can add more plugins to the tool. So if you want to install ExtraDB instead of InnoDB, you can do that with a few lines. You just have to be lazy for 10 minutes to write the lines into the configuration file, and then eventually it will do it. If you do it, send me the patch, please. In addition to change the port to a single sandbox, you can do that for a replication sandbox. Now, how does the replication sandbox work? Instead of using the version for the port, it will use a base version plus the port number. I don't remember which base version I use for replication and other things, but let's say it's 7,000, and then it adds the version number for to find the port. Now, if you say check base port 5079, it will try the normal port, and if it says that it's not free, it will continue trying until it finds at least as many free ports as you need to install the slaves for this replication. So, for instance, if you ask for 4 servers, 1 master and 3 slaves, we will try to find 4 contiguous free ports that you can use for your system. Once it finds that, it will install the replication with non-conflicting ports. I have more recipes. There are a lot of them. If you want to see them, you just type perl-doc MySQL Sandbox recipes, and you will find all of them. Now, the sandbox, as I told you, it's a public project. You can use it. You can see the source code. You can file a bug if you find it. You can ask questions. Somebody did in this room. You can see the blueprints where there is the roadmap. And you can participate anyway. So if you want to contribute something, feel free. And speaking about that, I have a roadmap, something in mind. I feel lazier and lazier. So the more I feel lazy, I want to do things to alleviate my laziness. What I'm thinking about. I want to do a new architecture. As I said before, now the sandbox only works on operating systems that look like Unix. Since I don't do Windows, I want to do a new architecture that will make it easy for people who want to contribute to install sandboxes on other operating systems. So I will create a deployer class, something that knows how to deploy a sandbox in abstract terms. And then a subclass that will do that on Unix, and somebody will do a subclass that can deploy on Windows. As I explained to you today, the sandbox is something that I use for testing only. But many people ask me, once I'm satisfied with testing, why I cannot just take this sandbox and convert it into my production server. So this is what I want to do. I want to create something that can test and then say, okay, it's good enough. Let's move it to production. I want to make it cluster friendly. I did a prototype a few weeks ago that works well. And this prototype is important for 2 reasons. It's the first time that the sandbox does a cluster, and this was written in Python instead of Perl. I want to make the sandbox cloud friendly. This is more a buzzword than roadmap so far. I made one prototype where sandbox works well with Gearman. Gearman is a system, a distributed client server system that is very much cluster friendly. The sandbox at the moment is not very much friendly with Gearman, even though you can put them together. So I want to make the new sandbox something that will play well with the servers like Gearman, Memcached, and other things. And as I mentioned before, this new version will be in Python. Why that? Even though I speak Perl very well, I'm aware that not everybody does. And in my environment, I know a lot of people who speak Python more than Perl. So I think that I will find more contributors if I move to Python. And besides, it's been 2 years since I learned programming language, so it's time that I learn a new one. And so far it's satisfactory. I like Python. It's it's promising. So this is the end of the slides. Would you like to see some examples? Good. Because you should never trust the presenter. The presenter can tell you a lot of marketing stuff, telling you the sandbox can do this, the sandbox can do that, but it's not true. So let's see. Of course, you cannot see it. Now you should be able to. Okay. So I have a sandboxes directory, which is empty. Remember that slide where I said how many keystrokes and how long does it take? Okay, let's try that one. Time SB, sorry, SB 5091 minus E select version. So it's 4 seconds and 15 milliseconds. Now, replication. The difference is this one, R instead of the simple the simple version. Installing master, slave 2, started, total 6 seconds and 66. If you want to use the binaries that come with Debian, so you are inside a Debian box and you want to use those ones. Now, the sandbox has one particular binary that is called install make sandbox from installed. It's not perfect, but most of the times it works. It will try to figure out in which system you are, and will create a fake base directory with links to the MySQL programs that are installed in your box, and will create a sandbox from that. That's, yeah, it works. No, you should not. I mean, unless yes, you need to give the version number. That's it. You need the version number because it has to create the port. So you didn't give it to the port number, but you gave the version number. Yes, yes. Okay. Anyway, this is what you should do. let's see what happened in sandboxes. We have created a sandbox, single one, and one replication one. And they are all independent. Let's ask them. Select show variables like port. Now you see the first one uses 5091, the single one. It uses the the simple port. Now the master uses a base version plus something related taken from the version, and from that the slaves is one more and one more. This is how they become independent. They don't conflict with each other. And you can create more. You can create more of the same version or more of different versions. Let's try something of a different versions. What do we have here? Okay. 5, 5, 4. Takes a little bit more than a few seconds, but it comes. If you want a replication of this, we can do that. It's one master and two slaves unless you say that you want more. By default is that. Actually, you can say also less. If you say how many slaves you want and give a number, for instance, let's do like this. Make replication sandbox. How many slaves equal 5, 5, 0, 8, 6. It will remove the current one unless you give a different directory name and the port number. It's one of the recipes that we showed before. It will not fail. Since this is a test system, I made by design it will replace a replication. So the idea is that if you are using a replication in the same machine, it's for testing. And if it's for testing, you shouldn't mind if you remove it. If you don't want to remove it, you just have to change to use the protect option of the sandbox to prevent that. So the sandbox will become protected, and if you try to do the clear command, that is the one that the installation program uses to remove it, it will fail, and in that case it will preserve. So if you want to preserve a sandbox with the test that you have so far, you can do it. Yes. So you see, you have 5 slaves instead of 3 here. Did we make a a replication sandbox 554. Okay, let's try the installation of the plugin for this one. So SB tool, please. No. Not, but this is something that could be useful. Now, one thing that you can do, you can create multiple sandbox of different versions, but they are not in replication yet. This is how the circular replication works. When you ask for circular replication, it will create first a group of sandboxes that are unrelated, not in replication, and then it will create one script that has the replication command. So you can use something like that to make a replication between servers of different versions. That could be actually easy to implement. I put in the roadmap. And you can contribute some patches. Do you speak Python? Okay, so SB tool minus operation plugin, and the plugin is the semi-sync replication, and the source sandbox is R sandbox 554. It will first stop the slaves and the master, and then install the plugin, and then restart everything. Performance people here might be interested in the slowness of MySQL 554 in replication. It takes quite a lot to stop compared to other versions. But it's working. Stop the master. Now installing semi-sync, and then it restarting everything, and this is the result. If you know what the semi-sync synchronous plugin does, it's one new version, new feature in MySQL 5.5 that will make sure that at least one slave has got the information from the binary log before returning the result to the client. And it's not difficult to install, but it's time consuming. If you want to test it, this is very much convenient. Any particular test that you want to see live? I'm rewriting everything because this is going to be much different. Yes. Because the way it is now, it's difficult to do what I want. Like deploying a production server that is not within the possibility of the current sandbox without suffering too much. I think I will find more contributors, and Python has much better object-oriented support than Perl. Perl object-oriented is questionable at best. Even though I've been using for a long time, really, object-oriented in Perl is asking for trouble. You need a sandbox with InfoBright. Now, do you have a tarball for InfoBright? Okay, does it have the version number in the name? Does it start with MySQL dash? It should work because, you know, it should work because if you take MySQL dash enterprise version number, it works. So it doesn't have to be MySQL dash version. It's MySQL for sure must be. It doesn't work for cluster, for instance. It doesn't work for cluster because not because it doesn't recognize cluster, because MySQL cluster is good. What is not good is MySQL cluster dash 7.1. 7.1 is not a recognized version, so it doesn't want it. Okay, but one of the recipes here tells you that you can just unzip the tarball, call the directory 5142, for instance, and after that you say make directory make sandbox 5142. Then InfoBright as a plugin or is already included. Yes, but it has also a plugin. So I think the distribution has the plugin already enabled. So you have just to expand the tarball and try it. You have an excuse to tweet me. So questions? I got a patch for that, but without tests. This is why I didn't put it in. You know, I have a test suite with something like 250 tests. If you give me a patch with that passes the test suite, sure. I want a patch that tests what the patch is. That's it. I don't remember. I have it in the mailing list. Right? MySQL 3? Yes. I have them. I still keep them from the days when I was a consultant. But you can find them online somewhere. The way I do it is I call the make sandbox with an option to use a different port and a different directory. I have done that a lot when I was testing replication. I need to test the same version in 12 different configurations. So I just called every configuration with a different directory name and a different port. It was the same binary, yes. Different binaries for, okay. Okay, this is a different case. So you want different binaries for the same version, and one way of differentiate the sandboxes. Yeah, I would need to extend the recognition of the directory name to include something after the version number. I think that at the moment it doesn't. I think at the moment it really wants only the directory number. That could be an easy patch. You just need to extend the regular expression that checks the directory name. That one is enough if you put the option check port. And you know, extending the regular expression is easy. Then you can say when the regular expression is more than a simple number, use check port. Five lines. Come on, you can do that. But seriously, if you want to patch that, I will accept it. I could do that. I don't have time at the moment. All the sandboxes, the sandbox has been done in my free time. So if you check the commits, they are almost all on Sundays or late at night. Sponsoring the features, how? You know, I work. Find somebody who writes a patch with enough tests, and I will include it. No, and since I work for a company, I'm not allowed to do separate business with this. Even though from time to time I receive messages from people asking me how much does it cost a license for Sandbox. And I don't know, I don't have a marketing department for this, so I don't know how to answer that. Some stuff with? No. Do you have a practical example that you can use to make at least a blueprint on that? Well, getting all the sandbox together with the memcached and the RBD is going to be a lot of work. Yes, I want to this for the next version, but since I'm not an expert in memcached, I'm hoping that if I make the architecture flexible enough, I will find somebody who wants to contribute some code from projects that I don't know, I'm not an expert of. The same for cluster. I'm not an expert on cluster. If I make the sandbox play well, at least in principle, with cluster, somebody who is an expert on cluster will find a way to contribute to that. The same with it happened with memcached. I don't think the RBD can be done in one host. Yeah, okay. It can be done. Everything can be done. But it's whenever you have some software, it's difficult to please everyone. You know, things that are very much important for you are useless for another person, and so I have to choose sometimes, depending on the time that I have and the understanding of the feature that people want. I usually do the low-hanging fruit, but I'm open to patches. Yeah, this is what I want to do on the next version. No. When I had time to, I tried to do that, but they didn't play along with me. I asked them, you just make a script to pack drizzle quickly in a tarball, and I will make a sandbox. They say, no, it's not in the roadmap at the moment. We are not making any binaries. Okay, so they make the binaries 8 months later, but by that time I didn't have time. And eventually it will happen, because conceptually it's very easy. You don't actually, conceptually it's easy, but there are some things that work differently in Sandbox, in MySQL and Drizzle, but it can be done.
I think that's again what should work well for and I'm not saying you have to do it right away.
Oh no, this is one of the objectives of the next version. So I will make the architecture in such a way that If you know a system much better than I do, you can just make a subclass of the deployer and make the sandbox work with that. Well, Postgres is not very friendly with if you don't have root. Postgres assumes that you are the owner of the box and does the right things that needs to be done with that box and installs everything for you, but it doesn't assume that you want to do that as a normal user. You shouldn't do because it's not right. The philosophy of the sandbox is that the normal user should have power within its territory. So if MySQL allows you, you can do it. Drizzle allows you, so it should be feasible. With Postgres, we need to change a lot of things. Too many things, actually. Yeah, theoretically, you can create an architecture that tells you how to create a sandbox for a theoretical database, abstract database. And then you plug the database that you want. Provide that database could be friendly enough to recognize that you don't have root access and you can install that without root. It's not something that you can do always, but it's doable. It needs more work. You know, I had many questions from Oracle users asking for advice on how to do that for Oracle 12G. I say, feel free to try, but don't ask me. It's not. Yeah, good luck. It shouldn't be that hard, but you know, also Oracle has some assumptions that when you install Oracle, it should be installed with some ownership of the box in mind. So I have installed Oracle several times in my career, and I was never happy during those days because it took me several hours every time to install it. Yeah. So it can be done. Everything can be done. If you are a skilled developer, you can script everything. It depends on how much time you have, how much you get paid for that, and how much you want to suffer. I just changed my career in such a way that I didn't have to install Oracle that much. And now that I work for Oracle, I don't have to install it at all because I have a lot of skilled colleagues that can do that much better than I do. So you see, I can continue playing with things that I know. Uh, You're right. Okay, so you see, the technology is evolving. More questions?
I guess we're done. Thank you all for coming out. I know it's lunch hour. Thank you for coming.
And I didn't fall asleep.
And you didn't fall asleep.